Can you guys hear me? Oh, there you go. We're going to call to order the City of West Sacramento Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Services Commission meeting for April 2nd. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Hargrove.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Price,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Hargrove,
Here.
Commissioner Ahmad, here, Commissioner Eckler, Commissioner Jans,
Here.
Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Sandoval,
Here.
and alternate Commissioner Horwitz.
Are we going to bring him up here?
Sorry, no, I shouldn't have read his name. We have a quorum.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, bud. All right, now we have item 1A. Sorry, before I start that, anyone wishing to address the commission should fill out the request to speak form and present it to the clerk. Thank you. And these are all for 5 and 10? 10. Oh, that's 1D. Okay. Sorry. 1A, oath of allegiance for public officers. We had some people here who weren't here last week who are here today to be sworn in.
So I'll have those members stand at this time, please, and raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Danny Sandoval,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties I'm about to wish
Thank
to
you.
enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You gotta cut those lines.
Can't memorize them yet.
Thank you. Introduction of commissioners. I think we're just going to do the ones who weren't here, just say who you are, and start down here with Commissioner Ahmad. Make sure the microphone's on, too.
Hi, my name is Aruj Ahmed. I'm here with my newborn. He's 7 weeks old. Sorry, he's very wiggly right now. I'm trying to nurse him. I'm a resident here, mother of 4, formerly a union organizer in the healthcare industry, and been living in West Sac for the last 10 years now, I think. But overall in Yolo County for the last 15 years. And I've been serving on the commission since 2016, I believe, and I love doing it. I've learned a lot. Thank you very much.
My name is Danny Sandoval. I've lived here in West Sacramento about 8 years, about 15 years in the Sacramento region. I'm a transplant from the Bay Area. I'm really happy here. I'm really happy I brought my family to live here, and I'm honored to be sitting on this dais to help represent the citizens of the city of West Sacramento on this commission. I also work for the California Healthcare Foundation, which is a nonprofit, which I do in the daytime. I have my wife and 2 kids that attend schools, and thank you for letting me be here. Thank you.
My name is Matthew Hargrove. It's an honor to serve. I really enjoy this commission. I grew up in West Sacramento. I went to public schools here. I went to Westmore Oaks, and then Evergreen, and then Golden State, and then I went to Our Lady of Grace for just a little bit, and then I went to high school at Christian Brothers. I've decided to raise my family here and stay here. I love West Sacramento. I love all that it has to offer. At one point, I figured out that I've lived in 15 houses in 5 different neighborhoods in West Sacramento, and hopefully I'll stay where I am now for a long time. But again, I'm pleased to serve, and thank you to all the staff, and it's great to have a whole bunch of people in the audience here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Item 1C is selection of a commission chair and vice chair. Do we have any nominations for commission chair?
I'm currently serving in the role as vice chair, and I know a lot of times it's tradition for the vice chair to move into the spot of chair. But my travels and my work this year are taking me to many more places than I normally go, and I don't feel that stepping into that role, I would be able to give it my full attention. So I just want to step in and make sure that we know that I do want to serve, and I do believe I'll be able to make all the meetings, but I do have some odd travel this year that I don't have in a normal year. With that, I'd like to move forward the name of Arouge to be the chair of the committee. She's looking at me, but I think that she's brought a great perspective to the commission since I've been on it, and since she's joined us. And I know she's always got her hands full, literally, and so I'm trying to add to her plate if she's willing to accept it, and so I would like to move her name forward as chair.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm honored. I would love to serve as chair, but given the baby, I don't know how many meetings I might end up having to miss. I hope I don't have to, because the obligation is not burdensome or anything, but he's a variable, especially his first year. So I won't be traveling, but I might miss meetings, and I don't want to underserve the community in any kind of way. But I'm happy to do it if no one else is interested. Oops, sorry.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Greg Price. I think he's done a fine job. I know him personally, and if you're willing to take it and continue what you've been doing.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Any other nominations?
Well, Arouge, you're illustrating your point. If you truly are not feeling that you have your hands too full, then I would go with the will of the group on that one.
Yeah. Oh. He just burped.
We should nominate someone who's not
My
here.
nomination was based on your response.
No, I appreciate that, and I happily concede.
Then I'll table my motion on that.
Thank you.
So I'll nominate Danny Sandoval for vice chair.
Second that.
Yeah.
Any other nominations? Are you all in favor of Greg Price for chair and Danny Sandoval for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, I don't have to move. Commissioner skipped over item 1D, presentations by the public on matters not on the agenda within the jurisdiction of this commission. The commission is prohibited by law from discussing items not on the agenda at this time, but we do welcome the public to speak, and we do have a member of the public here to speak to us today. Matthew Hargrove is going to go present from the podium, right?
I know this is unusual, but I'll be leaving my place on the dais to go speak as a member of the public. Mr. Chair and members, thank you for indulging me in this. My name is Matthew Hargrove. I am a member of the commission, but I'm here specifically speaking to you as a member of the public. Last year, as we were working on putting together a neighborhood picnic, which this year will be at Memorial Park on May 19th, that's put together by Peggy Bell, and it's part of the neighborhood.com neighborhood picnic program. Last year, as we were doing that, we figured out that there was no neighborhood map in the city of West Sacramento. We have 10 to 15 different types of maps within the city that show everything from emergency egress to where every single street light is in the city. But we didn't have something that showed what the different names were for all the different neighborhoods. And to the extent that we did have a map like that, it only showed the official names or the planning names, which aren't really what we would use in common language. So we started putting together this map last year, which I've passed out to everyone up there, and hopefully most of the members of the audience have a copy. If not, there's extras over there that you're welcome to. I've been putting together this map and kind of shepherding the process. The process has been trying to get as much information from members of the public as possible, because at the end of doing this map, what we'd like to have is something that presents the common language for the people who live in West Sacramento, something that will strengthen our bonds, something that if you live in the very most southern reach of Southport and you're talking to somebody who lives in the most northern part of Bright, you should be able to have common reference points that aren't necessarily exactly in your neighborhood. And you'll see the map really tries to map out the large neighborhoods, such as Broderick and Bright. It also has neighborhoods on there which are recently been officially named or dubbed by the city. Even one of them is our most old neighborhood in the city, and that's the Washington District. So as you look at the Washington District, the lines I have on that map up with the city planning documents. It also shows the Bridge District as they are in the city planning documents, and so on. Some fun things that I've learned as I've been doing this is, even though many people have grown up in West Sacramento, sometimes you don't know exactly where all the neighborhoods are of you, or you've heard a name of something and you don't know exactly where it is. So this map I'm doing as a public service, as a passion project, because I love West Sac, and I think that if you can talk to somebody who lives completely on the other side of town and just be able to make a connection through geographic waypoints, is what they're called. If somebody says, you know, I live out by Dave's Pumpkin Patch, that immediately in your mind tells you where that is, and that's not something you'd find on a normal map. If somebody says, I'm going to that store over by IKEA, that's also on the map, and it helps with that. So that's my time on the map. There's areas that are colored, and that's generally where the people live. So you'll see Valhalla is a great neighborhood of mobile parks out in the western part of our city that has a little bit of color there. So thank you very much for indulging me, and I really appreciate being able to present this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 1E, Commissioner Communications. Anything besides the West Sacramento neighborhood map or stuff that was in our agenda packets that we need to know about? No? Don't think so. Perfect. Presentations. Item 2, presentations on the fully automated intelligent restrooms for potential use. Sam, tell us all about the automated restrooms.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Sam Coney. I'm your Superintendent of Parks and Grounds for the city, and we wanted to take an opportunity to provide a presentation on some advances in design and technology relative to public restrooms. So from traditional construction materials selection to web-based monitoring, these improvements are aimed at improving these restrooms and making their use practical for the general public. Some of these innovations include automatic paper product dispensing, soap, wash and dry units, web-based monitoring and problem alert notification, remote locking and unlocking of the doors, graffiti-resistant interiors and exteriors, vandalism-resistant fixtures, and programmable time use intervals, as well as automatic sanitation capabilities. We have a few videos we'd like to show. The first one will give you an introduction to one of the products that has been considered, and you can see by the video there's offers a nice clean appearance. It's very well thought out as far as step head. Anyway, I'm going to let you watch the video and you'll kind of get an idea of what it entails.
Welcome to Excellent. Please press button to close and lock door. One of my favorite features is the fact that it'll flush the toilet if you go to the hand washing station. And either way, that gets taken care of. So fully inclusive, these restrooms are designed to discourage unwanted activities that currently plague the traditional concrete block public restrooms that we're all familiar with. Some of these activities include acting as an attractant for the homeless population who attempt to sleep, bathe, wash laundry, and loiter. Restroom supplies that are regularly stolen almost immediately upon restocking. Constant use and abuse of the restroom, making it challenging to maintain sanitary conditions despite regular visits from maintenance staff. Plumbing that isn't configured to handle the current activities, resulting in frequent clogging, noxious odors, and graffiti as a constant issue. We've got another video that shows one of the features that I like the most. If you've used a public restroom, this particular model has a self-sanitizing feature. I know this is very spaced out. So anyway, it's quite a departure, like I said, from the traditional concrete block restrooms that we have right now. There are a number of products on the market. They're being used all over the world to improve the public restroom experience. And the City of West Sacramento Parks Department is seeking feedback from the commission on potential use of this product in our city parks. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now.
Start on the end over here.
I'll go first because I know Dave is going to go with this.
So first of all, I want to say you are quite a gentleman for not giving any examples of what I know
has happened to you and your staff working with you with the public restrooms. I have been a part of several public events where we have had to leave overnight bathrooms at Riverwalk Park, and it's incredible the destruction that happens with the restroom itself that's there and with the porta potties that get brought in to augment those restrooms. And it's unbelievable. The one night we had all the porta potties brought in, and the next morning we came in and there was not a stitch of toilet paper in any of them. So the first thing that the folks were doing that were running that event had to run to Rayleigh's and buy toilet paper for their guests. It's really incredible. It looks like this could fix that. But I'm wondering what cost is and what the reality is on being able to afford this under our current constraints.
The cost is not prohibited. It's almost equal to the cost of constructing a traditional CMU block wall restroom. So the cost is very comparable to the existing method of building restrooms. Probably, and those range from $200,000 to $300,000, depending on whether or not you've got water, sewer, and electric, or whether you have to bring those to the site, whether or not you're replacing an existing restroom. But for example, the two-stall restroom that we constructed out at the new Bright Park picnic area cost $240,000. So the cost isn't really a prohibitive factor.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Matthew asked one of the questions that I had as well, which was the comparative cost to an existing restroom. But when I looked through the report, I'm glad you had a video, because the pictures looked impressive and the video was even more so. So thank you for that. I think I think they're a really a great thing, and I just had a few questions about them.
Yes.
One of them was, as with any technology, especially one that's in motion consistently and being utilized, have you looked into the ongoing cost of maintaining the restroom? I know that there, in your report, you had a cost associated with maintaining traditional ones.
Yes.
But say the door slider fails, or the buttons fail, the sanitation devices fail, stocking the detergent, things like that. What's that cost compared to a traditional restroom?
So the maintenance costs will probably increase to keep the technological aspects running, but I'm convinced that the savings in paper products, water, et cetera, will probably offset that. We pay our contractors numerous times a year to come out and work on the restrooms that we currently have, and we all know that plumbers don't come cheap. So they've had these installed, some of them for as long as 27 years, and they have a very good track record. They come with a warranty, a service warranty, and then I think after that, it'll be manageable.
I think what you said in the report was that you anticipated that it would reduce annual maintenance costs by about $2,000 to $5,000. So like you said, if you compare, you're fixing doors now, then you just be fixing a different kind of door. You're changing those things so that, like you said, the maintenance on the clogs and the extra toilet paper and all that stuff certainly would add up. And it's just great that the technology exists, and certainly would look forward to you guys exploring it a little more to see what, especially for, maybe not right away replacing, but when you have new development type parks, is to say, let's put in the intelligent restroom, and we get our own real data.
Yeah.
To be able to see how it went. And then as we started funding and doing the end-of-life maintenance on the existing parks, to start putting these in those facilities also, or looking at high-use places like Riverbank, Bright, where there's like a lot of activity happening, where there's a lot of maintenance happening, doing the sort of budget analysis that's required to see if that would make sense to replace those facilities with something like this.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you. Danny?
Sorry, I cut you off, Dave.
Yes. The other questions essentially are related to, I think you already kind of touched on it, was some usage data. You said that they're kind of being used around the world some of
Yes.
them so for 27 years. So I guess a lot of my questions kind of relate to just general questions about the ongoing use and how effective they actually are. For example, you talked about mitigating some of the issues that come with the transient population using the bathrooms and removing things. Is there prevention in place for people just to go in and use it, exit, go back in, and just continually, I noticed there was a shut-off, for example, technology where if they were overusing it for a certain amount of time, it would actually shut down on them.
Yes, so what'll happen is it's programmable. The normal time period is 8 minutes. Once that 8 minutes has elapsed, after several alarms, the door opens to the public, and there's an audible requesting the patron to leave the restroom. And then, like I said, every 30 uses or 30 minutes, you can program it to sanitize, and what'll happen is you heard the audible, the alarm, the constant voice, and we found that, most people go to these for privacy and solitude. If this constant barrage is occurring, they're not going to want to utilize it in the manner that they are. So they found that it's very effective. Portland has a Portland loo that they've been using in public spaces, and it has a similar methodology to it, and they've found it to be quite effective as far as, the high traffic transient population areas, and just returning the use to the general public like it was intended.
And it says, somewhere in here I read earlier that you're actually able to monitor, like if there's problems or something that arise?
Yes. So by engaging Wi-Fi at the unit, it can tell you if you run out of product, if the door is jammed by someone or by accident. It can tell you if there's a plumbing problem, if the water flow exceeds a threshold. So, and unfortunately, it'll probably go to my cell phone at night. And another great feature is you can lock and unlock the door remotely. So what I have right now is I have staff that start out at 7 p.m. and they have to cover the entire city going around and closing down each individual door. So our closure time is actually 7 p.m. when they finish up around 8:30. With the locking and unlocking remotely mechanism or on a timer, what you can do is I can have them all close at 8 o'clock instead of having to, have that staff person run across town and try to get them all closed up and have people exit. So we're still going to require staff people visiting on a regular basis just to maintain the restrooms, but we're confident that like I said, the quality of the experience and the usability of the restrooms will increase exponentially with this technology.
Thanks.
You're welcome, Danny.
Most of my questions have already been covered, but one question I do have is if something does go wrong, like you said, for example, like the plumbing, what infrastructure will there be to take care of the plumbing issue, since it's innovative, new piping, everything's going through a computer software probably?
Yes.
Does it come with a certain warranty? How does that get it? And what's the turnaround time? Because then, the time the restroom will be out of service.
So currently, the way it works is the restroom, whether we get a call from the public or my staff during one of their regular visits, which is approximately every 3 to 4 hours, they go to visit the restrooms. If a problem is noticed, then I'm contacted or our front desk will be contacted. They'll contact me. I contact a plumber or send staff out to the site to at least, minimize the water or something, and then the plumber comes a lot of times the following day. So what it'll happen is I'll get an alert, or the designated person will get an alert on their cellular phone that there's an issue, and then I can send a staff person immediately. So it'll shorten the response time along those lines. It'll also give me an opportunity to diagnose the problem, and if a plumber's required, instead of waiting that 3 or 4 hours when the next visit was scheduled to occur, we'll catch it early enough to perhaps get that plumber out there that day as opposed to the following day.
And will the plumbers already have a good way of knowing the mapping of the plumbing of those facilities?
Oh, they'll
when they go
have
in?
schematics, everything relative to it, I think, so, yeah, the toilets are actually designed with larger piping to combat some of the issues that public restrooms experience. So they will hopefully cut down on the number of instances as well as notify us in case there is. And it also works if one of the products runs out or becomes low. So instead of going to a public restroom like we all have and finding out that, there's either no soap or no paper or problems along those lines, it'll send an alert if one's being used heavily, and then I can go ahead and send a staff person out there to make sure it gets stocked right away. So if someone does use it, they find everything they need.
That's very impressive, and thank you for putting all of this work together. You've done a great job, and thank you for your hard
Well,
work.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Commissioner Ahmad, any comments?
Yeah, just a quick question. There's a baby changing table, which is great. So does that mean there's a trash receptacle inside, or would those be outside only?
So, that's an excellent question. Most of the parks have exterior trash receptacles, but it just depends on the model. Some models have the washing stations actually outside the restroom itself. This particular one that we featured has it inside. Same thing with the trash receptacles. Some are located inside, and also some are located outside.
Okay. The reason I ask is sometimes I know with babies,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like a blowout, you want to have a trash right there so you can change them, and, so that would be nice to have. And also, as a woman with sanitary, like napkins and pads and things, you want to throw them away. And I think there's something I see in the pictures, I'm not sure if it's 4 pads, but to throw them away in. So I just want to make sure there's something to be accounting for women and children
Oh, yes.
inside. And sometimes you go to some bathrooms that they don't have those things, so. But overall, I think it looks great, and I definitely, someone that has always been, especially with kids or just being out in a bathroom setting, I know how hard it is to find a clean bathroom when you have kids who touch everything, so
Yeah.
the fact that it cleans itself is just a major plus. So I think it's wonderful, and I hope that if it works out, that in the future, the city just kind of rolls with it, because it seems like if it's going to save money in the future, that it's a good investment. So, yeah, thank you for the presentation.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, one more from Commissioner Hargrove.
More than one more.
More than one more.
It's a weird side effect of being a parent and getting older is clean bathrooms is very exciting to talk about. Is this something that's within your capital budget already? Is this something that you'd have to go to city council for? And if it's within your budget, do you have a project in mind that this might be a good fit for?
So it isn't currently built into the capital budget. It's something that we would definitely have to go to council for. And we are looking at a couple of high-traffic areas that aren't situated in a closed neighborhood. I won't name names, but some of the venues along the river we think would be a good staging, testing platform for a product like this.
I'd like to add to Sam's comment. So we have had a history of problems with the restrooms at Riverwalk Park. That has been identified in our Parks Master Plan CIP as a restroom that needs to be replaced or renovated. And so while we've identified that as a potential project in the CIP, we would still need to go through a formal budget appropriation process and a solicitation process. So we have identified some initial funding sources through Measure E and the innovation team, because this is an innovative, smart city type of amenity, but we would have to continue to work on leveraging that other resources. So we have thought about it. It is part of the CIP. This is just a concept we thought would be really good to get some early feedback from the commission on, so that we can continue to work on moving forward with it.
The only thing I wanted to add was just a request to see some of the city use data that's out there. I'm sure there's a lot of it if they've been in use this long, but maybe just some data, some use scenarios, some positive, negative feedback from the use of those restrooms in Portland, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Some of those that have been there for 27 years, some of the problems they've had with them, some of the good things that they brought, everything kind of together to really get a good look at what this could bring to the community.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's a great suggestion. When we do a request for qualifications to identify the product, we'll definitely use that, okay?
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your
Thanks, Sam.
support.
Consent agenda, only item on the consent agenda is item 3, consideration of the approval from the February 5th meeting and on the special, and the meeting, February 19th commission orientation meeting. We just need a motion to approve those minutes. I'll second it. So all in favor of, protocol. Motion to approve the consideration of the approval of the February 5th meeting and February 19th commission meetings, moved by Commissioner Hargrove, seconded by Chair Price. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has passed. One of these days I'll get the protocol correct. Regular agenda, item 4, update on the 2019 annual senior resource fair.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me present to you this evening on the annual Senior Resource Fair in West Sacramento. My name is Christine Prater, and I am the Active Aging Supervisor, and I work across the street at the Community Center, and I also run adaptive recreation for the City of West Sacramento and the customer service over here at the Community Center, and I do their financials. So I'm very proud to be here tonight and represent this Senior Resource Fair. It's brought to you in partnership with BB Can, and our chair for this event is Charlotte Dorsey, who is in the audience this evening. It's this Senior Resource Fair. This will be the 7th annual Senior Resource Fair that will be held in West Sacramento. We provide the Senior Resource Fair to bring services and resources to the seniors who can then benefit from them in their lives. Some of the perks of our Senior Resource Fair, we're going to be having free transportation to and from the fair for West Sacramento residents. We're working with a city staff to have VIA provide those rides for free that day. Another very vital thing that the Senior Resource provides is blood pressure checks courtesy of Walgreens in West Sacramento. We're going to be providing hearing tests from a vendor in Woodland. At this time, we have over 21 vendors on our list who have confirmed, actually 23, and every year repeatedly we have approximately 35 vendors represented at our Senior Resource Fair. An example of some of the vendors would be Via Transportation On-Demand Rideshare, confirmed to attend this year, Paratransit, Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center, which provides resources not just for the senior, but for the care providers of the seniors, if that's something that's happening in their lives. Meals on Wheels, Yolo County, North Valley Indian Health Center, Clear Captions, which is a phone resource for seniors that maybe need a phone with more visual and auditory that they can get a free phone through clear captions. RSVP of YOLO, which is a volunteer service for seniors who would like to volunteer in the community of YOLO. They can get that resource through RSVP. West Sacramento Police Department will be on hand. Society for the Blind, California Health Advocates. The Society for the Blind will, they do much more than what you're thinking, like it's, visual learning and book reading. They provide resources for things like that. And the Yolo County DA, HICAP, which is a neutral nonprofit source for health insurance choices. Legal Services of Northern California, free lawyer clinics, which are held across the street. We partner with them to provide that, and they will be on hand. And there's many, many more vendors there as well. We'll have a free snack, or we're working with an association to provide a free meal, but that has not come to the fruition at this point. So if that doesn't happen, we'll have some sort of free snack that the city provides. We also provide each attendee a swag bag where they can put their resources that they find that day and any paperwork and contact information, so it straps across their shoulders so they're hands-free. I came to the commission today for you to provide feedback. I mean, if you have any vendors you'd love to see at our senior resource fair. Seniors are our treasured members of the society. In West Sacramento, there are over 8,100 senior citizens, and that makes up 15% of our population. So we're just, if you can provide me with any of that feedback, I would love to hear it. One of the other things that happens at the Senior Resource Fair is that we proclaiming it Older Americans Month, which happens every year. A dignitary from the council will be there. Last year, I believe it was Babs and Karina, and they will proclaim it Older Americans Month, which is something that happens every year. So it's a very tradition for our community to do this. So do you have any questions for me?
Start on the end as usual.
First of all, I want to say, so my mom's still very active in town, and she has a very large friend group. So really appreciate all the services you're providing. Also, I've had some interaction with BB recently. I went to your website to find out if there was any groups where seniors met just to talk about issues. And I found a wonderful group that was meeting at the library. And I showed up to talk about my map project and get feedback from the seniors that were there, and they welcomed me with open arms. So I want to thank you for doing that. But that was directly as a result of your work, so I appreciate that. And as I've gone around, I just want to make sure you know your name is on the lips of a lot of seniors around here as somebody who is fantastic, who is providing really good service. You're very, very popular. So just
Aw, thank you.
just as somebody who
You're going to make me cry.
So, but I mean, I want to make sure you hear that. I know you know that, but it is really appreciated from somebody who's got a, an active
Well, we
record.
hope that that's what's happening, but I never would know that from your lips to my ears. Thank you.
And then, so my last question is on vendors. Actually, BB Can had suggested that I look into being a vendor at the
Great.
Here and just sharing the map and getting feedback from seniors in town. I would love to do that. So that my question was going to be, what's the deadline for sign up? And
Oh, I have an application for you. I'll get it to you after this event.
Fantastic.
And Katie likely has your email, so
thank you.
we'll get you an application. Thank you for that.
Oh, I wanted to second what Matthew said too. I have an active, my mother is very active in the community as well, and belongs to this, to the center there, and she goes frequently to the library and participates in there. So I just want to say personally, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Is her name Michelle?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it is. So, I also wanted to ask more of a helpful offer, but what's your marketing and communication plan to make sure that this is advertised out there and everybody in the community is aware that this is going on? What's your plan?
Well, that's a great question. Well, because we're working with our older adults in the community, a lot of them don't have social media, but we do plug it in social media, and we use those avenues. We have a Facebook event page. On top of that, we will be contacting the newsletter to put it in the local paper. We also have to do some hands-on marketing where we actually take flyers out to the community places of business, and we hand it and actually put it up within those places of business. We have the flyers, of course, and we have mailed it in our Active Aging newsletter. The City of West Sacramento also has a senior newsletter that they mail out now. I mean, I know I'm the City of West Sacramento, that sounded odd. John Robinson and the Age Friendly Network also has a newsletter, and we'd like to also place it in that. And they have their email reminders that it will be in. And I'm open to any other suggestions on top of that. It's, Charlotte, come on.
Come on up, Charlotte.
Charlotte knows.
Charlotte is who I was referring to when I was saying BB can welcome me with open arms.
No, I just wanted to say one of the things we routinely do, we have permission from Christy Skibbins at Meals on Wheels to take 100 flyers to their meal delivery, which I did today, so they'll be in all the meal deliveries tomorrow. We take them to all the churches, all the VFW halls. I have a list of 17 drop-off places in West Sacramento, and they all get 1 or 2 copies. Labu will put one up in their windows. Most of the markets will too. So we welcome suggestions, and if any of you know places in your community, in your neighborhood that would welcome a flyer put up in their window, please let us know, and we'll be glad to. Or a poster. Yeah. So appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question about attendance. So you said you expected about 175 of community
That's what we're shooting for.
No, it's great. What's been the attendance over the past years, and has that grown proportionately with the aging population?
The attendance has been growing. I don't have the exact numbers with me, my apologies. But last year we had approximately 150. So we're shooting for 175 this year because we think it's a good number. And when you say attendance, it's not just the seniors attending, it's their caregivers, their family members, and their support services. So we count all attendees. If you'd like me to change that, we can figure something out.
No, I was just asking, just to see if it sounds like you're pleased with the results, so.
Yes, thank you.
I just want to say, unlike my fellow commissioners, my mother is new to West Sacramento, and she is not engaged and very active at this moment because she's...
What's her name and number? We'll go later.
I'll see you after the commission hearing. But that being said, it's for me to get this information to her or any other citizen to get this information to, let's say, their parent who doesn't really want to leave the house. And it's great that you're offering the free via ride. I also heard English is limited. So, and I see you guys provide a Spanish and Russian translators at this resource center, and it'll be, I really want to get her there and make sure she understands it's a community that's together, and that she's going to be shown more resources that could be provided to her.
On that note, we do translate that flyer into Spanish and Russian. So if you do need the flyer in a different language, we can get that to you. I just did not bring those with me. They're still in the editing stage. So, and I would love to connect with your family members or your mother. And if you have any suggestions on how to connect with people that you're referring to, I would love to hear them.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your hard work.
Oh,
I
no
appreciate it.
problem.
Yeah.
You said you're working with a vendor or someone on providing a meal at the event?
Yes, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, it's fine. I was just curious, Do you have a budget in mind or amount that needs to be raised? Or are you looking for a donation?
So what happened is my lead recreation leader over here and I were in Woodland at their resource fair, and we met the provider of their free meal, and it is a independent living home, I believe, I'm not sure if they're independent or not, so I hope I didn't misquote, called the Californian, and they were providing this large spread for free. So we had spoken with them that day, because of course, we're like, hello, we do this as well, and we love this. It was just amazing. So they said they would love to work with us to do that, and I have been in contact with them, but what we don't have is that final confirmation of that free spread of meal. If that doesn't happen, as well as every year, the City of West Sacramento, through Active Aging funding, provides the meal in this, not a meal, a snack. And it's been pretty good snack. I mean, they've had, I believe it was, spaghetti last year? And the year, I mean, it's not just a small snack. They actually get a small plate of food. And then also things they can carry and a drink. So we will provide that if that's not happening. We do have funding in place for that. We've done it, anything we've done in the past, we can continue doing.
Oh, that's excellent. I was raising the question more or less to see if there was something we in the community could help with or.
Well, we take all help we can get.
I didn't know if you were trying to raise money to provide the meal or what your plan was, so thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. I hope they come through.
Thank you so much.
Any questions over there?
Yeah, mine's more of like, I guess, a suggestion or a question. First, I want to commend you for all your hard work. I mean, I've been on this commission for a couple of years now, and I'm always impressed with the senior fair and all the work that goes into it. So thank you for having that available. You know, I've been here for about a decade, and in other communities I've lived in, I haven't seen this kind of thing being offered for our senior community members. So it's very nice. One, I guess, question I had was, and this is coming from the fact that my father-in-law, who's 80, he's like a recent widower. One of the things that he's really grappling with right now is dealing with decluttering. He's been in the same home for 40-something years, and he's got a lot of stuff. And I noticed that amongst his group of friends, that's a common issue. And as their children, I've noticed that, like, we've all kind of talked about, you know, how do we get our parents to declutter? Because when they pass, or if they have to go to a home or something, the families are left with a lot of that stuff. So do you offer resources, and this is pretty extensive, what you have here, but I'm wondering in the past or even now, if you offer resources on how to like declutter and kind of, yeah.
There was a presentation provided, and I cannot remember if it's Woodland or Davis, and it was a doctor who dealt with, and I'm not saying this is your family member, but hoarding and everything that went along with it. And as we age and the things that happen, what I can do is look to see if I can figure out who that was and try to see if I can get some connections and invite someone that pertains to that area, because it's very important to, how to give that resource to the family or, yeah. But, and also, we have had some seniors that have had this issue, and it's good to have that resource for us and staff as well, and maybe provide them with a training and a tool.
Yeah.
So thank you for mentioning that.
No, thank you.
All right, I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
I'd like to take this closing moment to invite all of you to please just come to the Senior Resource Fair if you'd like to, and we would love to have you there.
Thanks.
And I did not even say the date for the people listening. The Senior Resource Fair is Friday, May 3rd, and it's 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., held at the West Sacramento Community Center. You can call us at 916-617-4620, and we would be happy to give you any more information.
All right. Thank you. Item 5, workshop on the draft Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan Report. Have at it.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Price, members of the commission. I'm Tracy Michael, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm actually going to try to give this presentation from the side this time. And tonight is a workshop item on the first draft of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan. You'll notice the title has changed slightly. We have been referring to this over the last year and a half as the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, but so much of what we do revolves around recreation programming that we felt that needed to be referenced in the title of the document. Well, over the last year and a half, we've had several workshops with both this commission and city council that have covered all of the major components that are in the draft 100 and almost 90-page document. And that includes information on community outreach, survey feedback, our level of service and facility analyses, programming analysis, priorities for park and facility development, and programming opportunities. And most recently, we were in front of this commission with a workshop item related to the 10-year capital improvement program, the CIP, and a financing strategy to implement that CIP and help to evaluate and prioritize projects. So I have a brief presentation that touches on some of the items we've already covered and also highlights some of the new items that we haven't addressed in a workshop item but are also included as part of the plan. So this slide just identifies the prioritized community needs. The data collection, the survey work, the stakeholder meetings that we held were completed over a period of time to help us identify the community needs and priorities. The information helped to set the foundation for the planning effort. And I always like to reiterate this every time the chart comes up. If something is high, medium, or low, it doesn't mean the low items aren't important or don't get done. It just means probably for the particular feature that there's just a smaller, more focused portion of the community that identifies with those particular facilities or programming. So all are important, and this just outlines the priorities based on the feedback that we received. Okay. For our level of service analysis, we started looking at the General Plan 2035 guiding principles for development. We had an overarching goal of 5 acres per 1,000 residents as our target. And when we completed our level of service, which included truing up all of our current facilities through GIS this time, which hadn't been done for our park development sites, we actually identified that we are currently short in hitting that target of 5 acres per 1,000 people. But when you look out to 2028 and our projected population, going to the next slide, what you find is that with all of the park developments that are planned but not yet built, we come pretty close to hitting our targets, our acreage targets. And this doesn't include any potential new joint use opportunities with Washington Unified School District. So if we're able to move forward with some new opportunities there, we would fully meet our acreage targets. We did the same thing for amenities. In terms of amenities, we have the ability within our current park and unbuilt park acreage system to focus on providing the amenities that were highlighted as priorities. And that includes athletic fields, publicly accessible tennis courts, and reservable picnic shelters. And so while we haven't gone through and pinpointed specific properties where these new amenities may be included in the future, we do know that identifying opportunities for these amenities to be housed with future park development is a priority, and we just need to be mindful about where we place them. We went through the equity mapping exercise that I'm not going to go over in this presentation, but it's included in the plan that identifies where we have gaps, equity gaps in the system, and working to connect those and balance those gaps with the amenity needs. And then we also looked at our indoor facilities. We are really fortunate in this community to have some amazing facilities with the community center, the recreation center, our galleria downstairs, the boathouse, and Club West. And so for our city our size, we are fully meeting our indoor facility needs. So the capital improvement plan. The last few times I was in front of this commission, we walked through the CIP and developing a 10-year CIP that we could implement. And we started that process by identifying cost buckets. These are categories for projects and funding based on the types of uses. So for our first bucket, which is the sustainable bucket, these are projects that are really about maintaining our existing system. We also know from the survey work that there's a real priority for maintaining what we already have. And so this bucket addresses that issue. We took a hard look on a park-by-park basis. We have an incredibly detailed spreadsheet about all of the life cycle replacement needs at each park and have worked to develop a 10-year plan to address those. And that includes ADA issues, parks where we might have health and safety issues, folded into that bucket number one. Bucket number two is about how can we expand or extend recreation opportunities in our existing facilities. And those are strategic changes to our park system, like adding shade structures over play structures is a great example of how that one improvement helps to extend the play opportunity in that park. Covered picnic shelters are another example. And then bucket three is visionary. Those are the big projects, new park development or repositioning of existing parks. So Bright Park and implementing the master plan is a great example of a visionary project. And in developing these three buckets, we worked hard to incorporate information from other existing plans or approved documents so that we really have one document that kind of covers all of the park and recreation related improvements considered as part of a variety of planning efforts. So that includes the bicycle, pedestrian, and trails master plan, other specific plans, development anticipated in Southport with Yarborough and River Park and Liberty. And then, and moving forward with our 10-year CIP development assumptions, we wanted to make sure that we created a plan that we could actually implement. And it's important to emphasize that we worked hard to create a plan that we felt like we were very confident in being able to implement, but it is a plan. It's a point-in-time document that is really meant to be a guiding document for us. The process that we went through reflects our best efforts to identify all of the potential capital improvement projects that we think will come online in the next 10 years. So you may see portions of a development included in this 10-year CIP, but not the entire development because we don't anticipate that the entire development will come online in 10 years. For example, Yarborough, River Park, or Liberty, we made assumptions about which portions of those development projects might be realized in a 10-year window. The same for the Central Park concept. So some things may change. We can add and revisit this at any time to reflect, opportunities that come up. We also shared with the commission a project prioritization criteria. So this would just help us to identify how we move forward and evaluate projects. So we've got a couple of different categories. We have the more immediate projects, and when I get to the near-term projects that are included in the plan, you'll see that a lot of them focus on the immediate projects needed due to health, safety, legal or ADA issues, benefit-driven projects, where we have a real opportunity to complete a partially improved project, or we might already have funding available for that project, and that can really drive how we identify what we're moving forward with in the near term. And then always financial capacity, assuming that we have funding available not just to complete a development project, but also to maintain it over the long term. So this slide just highlights a summary of the CIP by those three buckets, those three tiers. And what we have is a total CIP program over the next 10 years estimated at $179 million. It's important to note that the CIP in the 2003 Parks Master Plan was also $179 million. If we escalated that to today's dollars, it would be about $244 million worth of projects. So we have worked to really focus the scope of the CIP into something that is manageable. So this next slide also looks at the CIP by project type. So we've broken down the categories generally into existing park improvements, our existing recreation facility improvements, trail improvements, new park development, and also some administrative projects coming online. And we've broken those down over what we anticipate over the first 5 years versus the balance of the 10-year term. So there's a lot more detailed list in the report. I'm not going to go through those detailed lists, but I did want to focus a little bit on what's coming in the first 5 years. These are projects that we feel pretty confident are either happening or will come online. And so under the existing park improvement category, we've got some life cycle replacement, rehab of existing infrastructure and amenities, Memorial Park ADA upgrades, those will be under construction this summer. We also have ADA upgrade requirements at Bright Park and want to work hard to complete the balance of the Bright Park master plan improvements. We have the Barge Canal Recreation access area improvements. We actually have permits right now to construct trail improvements along the Barge Canal that we want to make sure we can move on, and we have some funding identified for that. Design and completion of the Heritage Oaks Park improvements. The ropes course is still moving forward, and with those improvements being made, we know that we need to complete the balance of the park site. And there will be other grant-driven park improvements as well with the Prop 68 grant program, variety of grant programs being funded through Prop 68 coming out. That will help to guide and direct some of our park investments. For trail improvements, we have Sycamore Trail Phase 3, the Southport Levee Trailhead construction. We did close on the trailhead property at Linden Road and the Southport Levee project. Clarksburg Branch Line Trail amenities, and the Riverwalk Trail North construction, which we already received grant funding for that project. And I do want to highlight, because I see the horses up on the ledge there, and I really appreciate everybody coming out. We do have in the design standards for all of our different types of parks and our recreation corridors, identification of opportunities to incorporate equestrian trails wherever there's an opportunity. We always have the struggle of being an urban city with very rural areas, and we have limitations. We know we have equestrian use limitations on our levee improvements. And so I can't advocate for equestrian use on the levee system. I can say that in all of the areas that we've already worked to identify equestrian opportunities adjacent to or in part of new trail development on the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail, on Davis Road when those improvements are built, Lake Washington and the Main Drain Canal, we certainly encourage and want to see that happen. So that is definitely part of the plan. It was part of the bicycle pedestrian trail master plan to a certain extent, and incorporate that into this plan as well. So trail improvements are a really big part of the CIP. We have new park development that we anticipate in the next 5 years. The Bees Lakes habitat restoration planning effort is underway now. We hope that that provides us an opportunity to seek additional grant funding for some passive recreation improvements and even educational opportunities. We hope that there are additional partnership opportunities with Washington Unified School District and other grant-driven park development with new park sites. So the Prop 68, the big grant program that's on the street right now is the Statewide Park Development and Community Revitalization Program. I have the booklet here. It prioritizes new park development, but it also has funding set aside for renovation or expansion of existing parks. So that grant program is definitely going to drive some of the opportunities we have to move forward in the near future with park improvements. And then we have recreation facility improvements. We have our rec center debt service. It's not called out here, but that's an ongoing commitment to continue to sustain the recreation center. We have our community center, interior painting, Bridgeway Lakes Boathouse storage facility. Those are improvements that really help us to continue to maintain the fabulous facilities for rental purposes, for community access and use. And then we have an administrative project identified. We hope we can secure some grant funding to complete an urban forest management plan. We don't have one yet. We know that that will fit nicely into the climate action planning work that we're doing, and hope to get that accomplished in years 1 through 5. So we haven't completed site-specific master plans for the CIP projects. We did develop some concept plans for some of our school district joint use opportunities and also for the Central Park, which I'll touch on in a minute. But for those types of projects, they really each demand an independent planning and design and community engagement process. And so as we move forward with specific park sites, we will have additional planning, design, and engagement opportunities with the community. And those efforts will certainly be coordinated with this commission and with the community. So funding for the CIP, we did work on developing a funding strategy approach that we shared with the commission the last time we brought this item to you. And that looked at taking the total CIP, which was $179 million, and then identifying all of the other funding sources that we might hope to tap into to help fund our programs. And those funding resources are listed on the next slide. What we did is we identified a variety of the funding sources, and then we looked at what the projected 10-year funding for those specific funding sources might be, and then allocated to that, as appropriate, some of our park CIP projects. And so we did this to kind of just do a little reasonableness test to make sure that we weren't overextending any of the funding sources, especially the non-traditional funding sources. So what you see here is that we've got funding sources like the General Fund Facilities Fund and the ADA Fund, which is a subset of the General Fund, Measure E, Measure G, Measure K, and the percentages of funds that we've currently targeted to potentially be used from those funding sources. We have identified Measure N as a potential funding source, but absolutely no commitment from that fund because we don't have a policy in place yet, but that may be an opportunity in the future. And then there are very specific funding sources that we would anticipate to use 100% of those sources for specific projects. So our public-private partnerships, if we have development agreement funds coming in for a project, we have already identified how those funds would be used. And so then we looked at our current park impact fee. So the whole funding strategy approach is to identify the total CIP, look at those other funding source opportunities, and then the balance of the funds remaining is what really needs to be picked up by the park impact fee. So we looked at what anticipated projects we think will come online in the next 10 years, and the park impact fee revenue estimates based on those fees and based on our current park impact fee structure. And what we have estimated is approximately $35 million in revenue over the next 10 years coming from our park impact fee. So we recognize, I just want to highlight that the city's development fees can be viewed as an impediment to development sometimes. And we are working with economic development staff and our community development staff to identify opportunities for fee credits for infill projects. So that might help to incentivize development. That will also reduce that $35 million value you see to some extent, but we're working on developing some language that we could incorporate into a recommended park impact fee. And so just kind of in summary, coming back to the CIP and where we're at when you factor in our park impact fees, we have a total CIP of $179 million. We've identified up to $144 and some change million of other potential funding sources that can help us accomplish our 10-year CIP. And then $30 million in park impact fee funding allocated to those projects. So we have a slightly unfunded balance, and where that comes from is in our sustainable bucket, bucket number 1. That's life cycle replacement. Those are the types of projects that you do not typically use impact fees to pay for. There are some opportunities with significant upgrades where you can do that, and Memorial Park is a good example of where we've taken the opportunity to enhance the upgrades at that park, but typically you don't see park impact fee going to that category. So we have a small unfunded balance. We think we can work over the coming years to identify sources and work through that balance. We also show that we have a little bit of extra park impact fee funds left, which is good to know because if we offer fee credits, that'll help account for that. And if we don't get some of the grants that we've targeted in our CIP, then that might help make up some of the difference. So we feel like we've got a pretty good 10-year plan, a pretty good 10-year funding strategy. And the next slide just sort of summarizes where we're at. We have over 83% of the park's proposed 10-year CIP being funded with other funding sources. So 17% of the projects are currently being targeted for funding from the park impact fee. We are recommending that we continue to leave the park impact fee as it is. We can revisit it at any time if anything changes, but where the fee is at right now, we think generates enough revenue in conjunction with the other funding sources to create a plan that can be implemented. We do not consider allocating any measure and funding. As I mentioned before, we did not factor in any cost associated with any Washington Unified School District joint use opportunities. We identify the projects, but no funding at this time because we just, there's a lot of uncertainty about what might happen with those projects. We also do not recommend any new funding sources, looking at creating a new funding stream for park development or maintenance at this time. Other jurisdictions do that, but we're not recommending that at this time. We know we've worked hard to engage this commission along the last year and a half worth of planning, or I want to fully commit my team to be providing regular updates on how we're implementing this plan on an annual basis. And a part of that comes with this, the strategic implementation section of the plan, which I'll get to in a moment. But I did want to highlight Appendix A in the plan, which is a CEQA analysis. So the CEQA analysis we wanted to complete for the Central Park area. Much of what's in this master plan isn't really new. It may have been included in the 2003 Parks Master Plan. It may have been identified in the general plan, 2035 document, or other completed specific plans. But what is new is the re-envisioned Central Park. And we've had a couple of presentations to this commission and to the council on the re-envisioned Central Park, which is really exciting. It is a centralized location in the city. It straddles the Barge Canal and looks at repurposing and celebrating the wonderful infrastructure of the Stone Lock Navigation Facility and trying to create a seamless transition between flood protection and open space and the riverfront and trails and linear parks. So there are three components to the Central Park area: the Barge Canal Parkway, which is located on the north and south sides of the Barge Canal between the Palmadesi Bridge and Jefferson; the Stone Lock Plaza, which is focused on the navigation lock area and really creating some unique gathering spaces, hardscape recreation opportunities, and even educational opportunities. And then the Sacramento River Parkway, which is located between the Mike McGowan Bridge and the Sacramento River. For the CEQA analysis purposes, we did not analyze the Sacramento River Parkway, and that's just because those improvements weren't well defined enough for us to evaluate at this time. It's very flood protection driven on the outcomes of those concepts, and so we focused the analysis on the other two areas. And what we found was that the proposed Central Park projects, the two of the three components, are within the scope of the West Sacramento General Plan 2035 Program EIR that was completed, and no new or substantially more adverse impacts would occur through implementation of the proposed plan. So the next section is newer. We have not discussed this with the commission. It's about park maintenance, and this has been a really interesting activity and analysis to go through. We have best practice maintenance standards in place, and that will be a helpful tool for us to use as we bring new park development online and help us to identify additional staffing needs based on those standards. We saw a reduction in our park maintenance staff several years ago with the recession, and we know that based on our maintenance, our best practice maintenance standards, we do lack capacity to fully implement those maintenance standards. We are short some full-time staff. Our operating budget is also a little short based on national average park operating budget per capita. Our consultant, who couldn't be here this evening, has shared with me that many other clients of his have much larger gaps in funding, and we're incredibly resourceful here, so we do a great job of working with volunteers and looking at grant programs and other funding opportunities to help fill that gap. But as we grow our system and continue to maintain our current system while taking on additional parkland and additional trails, it's just really helpful to have this information so that we can be working to grow our park maintenance division to help meet the demands of a growing park and recreation system. We're also citywide looking at implementing a work order management system, and this is going to be really helpful for us because it helps us to better identify the true cost of providing a service or implementing these best practice maintenance standards, and which is helpful for us to continue to refine the budgets that we need to maintain the system and how we plan for long-term sustainability. There are also some other emerging functions identified. Trail maintenance, as we grow our trails network, being able to focus more on trail maintenance, and that can be done through a trail ranger program. It can be done by having a trails manager. Irrigation maintenance is something that will become increasingly important as we grow our park system. General park maintenance in the south. The largest portion of new park development is happening in Southport with all of the new developments. And so that's where we're going to need to focus on growing a lot of our staffing. Also, open space, natural resource management. Several other jurisdictions have open space managers. And so that's something that we might want to look to as we continue to formalize pedestrian access near and around our open space systems, as we try to create additional educational opportunities in those open space areas. Volunteer coordination, as I mentioned, is critical for us. There are opportunities to expand our volunteer efforts, and we definitely want to work on pursuing that. And then I mentioned that we hope to complete an urban forest management plan in the next 5 years. We have a lot of tree work that we're doing right now that's going to continue to grow, and we contract out for a lot of those services. We'll be contracting out for more services as our system grows, and so just having on our radar screen the emerging function of contract management and having staff to support that. And then we come into our implementation strategy, and so there is more detail in the plan. I'm just kind of touching on the overarching goal statements here, and these come back to the strategic, kind of the key strategic findings that we developed in the very early part of the planning process. So just to touch on those, growing our park system, trails, park land improvements, economic development through park development, athletic field development, and recreation programming with some specific goals targeted in each of those areas, operations and staffing. And we also have a section here that deals with succession planning and identifying the need to kind of grow our own and develop opportunities for our staff to continue to take on leadership roles, as we have a lot of staff that are getting ready to transition to retirement. And then financing the park system, continuing to look for new and creative ways to leverage resources to fund our growing Parks and Rec system. So we hope to use the strategic implementation section as a framework to develop a standalone work plan that we would work to revisit each year in tracking our progress in implementing the master plan. This would align with our 2-year budget planning process that happens citywide. It aligns with the work we're completing with the Recreation Center right now with the Business Center plan update, and that will be coming to the commission shortly. And so we know the devil's in the details. We will work to identify actions and responsible parties and schedules for each of those actions, but we hope that this document can also be a fluid document that can be updated and reprioritized as needed. We went through a process of self-assessing our department for the Commission for Accreditation of Park and Recreation Agencies, or CAPRA. This is a program that accredits park and recreation agencies for excellence in operation and service. It's a time-consuming and can be an expensive process. Not a lot of park agencies throughout the country go through this process, but we went through a self-assessment just to see where we were at, and based on our self-assessment, we are really already operating at a best practice level. We come very close to meeting all of the requirements to become CAPRA certified. So we included that in the document as well, just as a reference to the great work that we're doing that we plan to continue to do. And then lastly, coming to next steps. Going the other way. We have a scheduled presentation on this draft plan, also based on feedback received from you this evening, to incorporate into a presentation to City Council on April 17th. We are working as part of a separate process on landscape development guidelines. This was actually funded and scoped out as part of our Parks Master Plan process. So that has been happening concurrent with this, and we hope to have that ready in the spring, as well as the Rec Center Business Plan update, which should be ready in a couple of months and aligned with what's incorporated into this plan, as well as our city two-year budget process. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your feedback.
We do have one member of the public wish to speak on item 5, Don Schatzel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Tracy's presentation exploded my brain. There's so many things I want to talk about now. But I am here representing the West Sacramento Trail Riders, the equestrian group in town. The Trail Riders were originally involved in the original Park Master Plan for the city of West Sacramento. And as a result of their involvement, the category of recreation corridor was created. And that was a multi-use trail. And the horse riders, the trail riders have always believed in trails for all, try to design and build trails that would accommodate everybody who would be interested, wheelchairs, hikers, joggers, bikes, equestrians. Staff has always been very supportive and willing to meet with us and explore ideas and talk about things that we have on our mind and some options that we can pursue. I have to share with you, however, that we did have a bad experience with the bike plan update, which is one of the reasons we're here, and to not only introduce ourselves, and we are here, we are involved, we are watching. When we went to the bike plan update, we asked them about the recreation corridor definition, and we did not see it on the bike plan, and they had no idea what we were talking about. And then we asked them, well, have you read the Park Master Plan? Their answer was no. Our job is to just do the bike plan, nothing else. They said, well, do you know the recreation corridor includes bicycle trails? No, they didn't know that. Our concern that we have on a normal basis with projects like this is that the horse community is recognized, that we are involved, we are active. We clean the branch line trail. We have cleaned Honda Hills. We have a hitching post on the branch line trail. We raise $500 a year to contribute to the fire department for the Toys for Tots programs they have, and we partner with Centennial Rotary and the school district to do a Horsing Around for Literacy program every year. So we do pay attention to what the city does and what the Park Master Plan. We're very appreciative in the document that we've read so far that it actually calls out equestrian trails. And some of the slides that Tracy showed did that. It said equestrian use. And having been in the Parks and Recreation business for 40 years and sat right there and sat over here, if it doesn't say that in a plan, the actual use, whether it's a bike trail or whatever, it gets forgotten because you're not here forever, staff is not here forever, and then they come back later, people in your position later, well, gee, it's not in the plan, I don't see it mentioned, I guess nobody provided any input, I guess we don't have to pay attention. So we appreciate in the document so far that equestrian trail use, multi-use trail was mentioned. The surveys Tracy mentioned were terrific because at the high-use area, if you look at that part, it was open space, it was nature, it was trails, it was hiking, it was bike trails, everything that ties right into the equestrian lifestyle and what horses do. We represent 70 members, 250 horses, so we are very involved and we appreciate working with you and your attention. I can't imagine you might have any questions, but if you do, all right. You like your horse, Matt? Is that all right?
I love my horse.
All right, okay. We forgot one. We'll get you one. Promise.
And I want to make sure, so this isn't, this is something that is agendized, so we can interact with folks from the audience who come up and testify, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Well, first of all, for those of you who don't know Don Schatzel, Don, he had alluded to it, he said he sat in that seat. Don was the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of West Sacramento for many years and put a lot of things in this plan on the map. I know that he worked hard for the city. I know my mom is one of his biggest fans. I keep mentioning my mom tonight, but he's a very special person in the history of West Sacramento, so appreciate all your work on all of that. So I do actually have lots of questions for you. I'd love some of your other feedback on some of what's going on in this, but I know you're here for horses tonight. You mentioned that there's a recreation corridor. Is that what we're calling the branch line trail, or is there something different than that
No, the
you're referring
recreation,
to?
sorry, the recreation corridor was a designation primarily in Southport because it was less developed and there was more room. It went along South River Road, and now we see signs that say horses are prohibited on South River Road, which causes us a little heartburn, as you might imagine.
So
But it goes up the main drain, along the port, and the branch line trail. There was actually a designated area for multi-use, and it's included in the plan now, as I went through it, so.
I want a better understanding where it is. As some of you know, I know Bill knows this, I love riding bikes out on dirt trails. I like to ride bikes the same place where you guys like to ride your horses. And I love horses and bikes being able to get along. I am absolutely Trails for All. And I have been concerned that some of I love the setback levy. It's fantastic. It's creating a huge amount of open space for us, but I know it's not welcoming to horses. So I am curious to know that South River Road doesn't exist anymore in some of the places out here. It's now called Village Parkway. So where exactly is that alignment of that recreation area, and how do we reclaim some of it for multi-use trails?
Tracy would know, but I think we've had discussions about maintenance roads, for example. Because we don't particularly care who owns them. But there's maintenance roads that sit there that are accessible to horses and bikes. It has to be designed in a certain way, access. But that's an opportunity. We've had meetings with the Liberty Ranch folks, and they have included equestrian trails, Davis Road. Lake Washington Boulevard, crossing Village Parkway going east is an opportunity. There's been a lot of discussions over the years about a circular trail through town, going over to Marshall Road and to the east, and then coming back around. All of those things are tremendous ideas and things we'd like to pursue.
Is the Deepwater Channel has a gravel road on it. That if you look at this, some of you have a great map out there. You'll see that there's along on the southern side of the Deepwater Channel there's a beautiful gravel road which we ride our bikes on all the time. It's not signed very well. Is that a flood control levee there? It is a flood control levee, so that's not somewhere so horses can't use that piece.
And part of it is privately owned, so it's, as you get around the corner, it gets a little tricky with the privately owned land. But the main drain does go north and come around the corner. So there are some opportunities there that we
So there's that, and then I actually have had a little lament with what the city's paving the entire branch line trail, which I like gravel. I like DG. DG is what I want to ride on. But is that an issue? And are there areas where the trail has been I assume horses would rather ride on the DG too, right? So is the city maintaining riding space as it puts asphalt on the branch line trail?
I think whenever you put in an asphalt trail and you acquire the land, there's enough room on both sides of dirt. The challenge for DG is maintenance. But from a horse perspective, if you can put the asphalt trail and have dirt on either side, joggers like to run in DG as well. They don't always like to run on the asphalt. So again, that gets back to the multi-use trail and the multi-use. And the Clarksburg Trail going south, absolutely great idea. Keep going.
Well, so I don't mean to dominate the questions, but so is that adequate? I don't know the answer to this. Is having some DG along the side of the trails adequately, in your opinion, provided for in this plan, or is something need to be called out a little bit more?
I didn't see it specified in the design element, but if it's included, then it would.
And then,
No, it's good.
Then, so the last question I have, and it was a question we got from the audience, which I'm very curious about too, is the branch line trail. I know right now it goes out a little bit past Davis. It ends before you get to the Gregory. It ends before you get to Gregory, basically, and then you have the old railroad overpass there.
Yeah.
And it's, so that's where the trail kind of ends right now. Where does the branch line trail go from there? Because naturally, it would go along the setback levee, or it's not the setback, it's the levee at that point. Do you know, does it come off of that? And where does the city's responsibility for the branch line trail end? And does the county pick it up, or do we have a right-of-way all the way to Clarksburg?
Well, we have the right-of-way almost all the way to the sugar mill. So there's a road, I think it might be Mill Road, where the easement or the ownership, depending on what the rail line had, terminates. And so we have a quitclaim deed for all of the property that the rail line either owned or had an easement, a use easement for.
So that answers a question. So are we maintaining that, well, I guess that's not, that part of it, where the trail ends right now at Gregory, from then on, the trail's not open at this point, right?
We don't maintain it. It's, once we're in the county area, we really do need to start thinking about what we want to see happen there. It's, it's farmland.
But it's not open yet. So that would.
Someone could try to go through there, but it is not easy.
But, so, I mean, one of the questions was why the signage changes on the branch line trail. Once you get that far out, the signage then goes to no bicycles, no horses, basically no access. And I just wanted to make sure, Dawn didn't bring that up, but somebody else in the audience did, that was indeed because that trail is not technically open yet to the public, because there hasn't been any improvements yet. Do we know?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
even know about that signage, so I'll have to go double check.
It sounds like it's in the county. It sounds like it's out by Babel Slough Road, right? So it's definitely beyond our city limits. And I know from talking with city staff that we want to go all the way out there, but we all know the improvements end at Gregory. So, did that answer the question out there on that one? Close enough?
If it doesn't, it's not exactly our purview to say what the county does with their part of the trail. Fair enough?
Well,
For now.
For now, I mean, I want to see us go all the way to Clarksburg, and I want it to be everybody to be able to access it. And I did not know that the city had the right of way after the city limit. I thought we did it until the city limit, and then it changed over to the county. So knowing that we actually have an easement on it, I think that's something that we as on this commission can pay attention to, and it's not part of this plan right now, but something something I would push for.
And if the city does have jurisdiction over the land, we don't need, speaking from the horse perspective, we don't need an asphalt trail. We can ride our horses on dirt as far as the city has control of the land. We'd be happy to do that. We don't have to stop at the asphalt.
I just don't know where it goes after Gregory. That's the thing we need to figure out, because it turns into a levee.
There is signage that says, stop here, but you guys
And
will
that's
find out.
something that we had hoped to be able to study with the Regional Trails Initiative, which we unfortunately did not get grant funding for. But it's a really good example of a multi-jurisdictional trail that needs to be coordinated. And there are other, safety issues to take into consideration, as it is an active farming area. And you don't want to encourage people using the trail on days when they have heavy equipment or they're spraying. And so that kind of coordination and education needs to be happening before we promote, any kind of active use down there.
Understood. Thank you for letting me have so much time.
I got one more horse-specific question. Matt probably knows the answer too, but so the new setback levy is basically saying you can't do anything on it?
Well, that's a federal rule.
Yeah.
That horses can't be on them. It's not a local rule.
Right, so Corps of Engineers, right?
I've been trying to find that rule specifically, and I have not yet found it. So I've been looking for that exact
I will get that for you. I don't have it with me tonight, but I know in an earlier meeting, it came up, and my predecessor, Cindy Tuttle, had that information. So I will find it, and I can get it to you.
Thanks, yeah.
Believe me, I wish it didn't exist.
So I think that's the next step too, is just looking at it from a, like I said, all trails. I mean, looking at some of the stuff like on page 47 of the report talks about facilities that are most important to people, and it's like walking trails being number one. But then that, like I said, if we do the trails so that they work for everyone, then everyone can use them, as long as we keep remembering that and keep pushing that, because we've had instances that I've experienced where it was like, I wanted to go ride my bike on a trail, and they're like, no, this is an equestrian trail. And it's like, well, no, it's an everyone trail, and that fight happens both directions. However, it's education that goes along with that. It's like how, I know how to interact when I'm on my bike and I run into, behind a horse or in front of a horse, and knowing that triangle of priorities is that has to be respected, and also part of our sort of education process, along with the signage that goes along with that for these multi-use trails. Because even like, interactions that you have on the main drain canal, driving your car across Marshall Road, and it's like, well, what do you do if there's a horse crossing the street on Marshall Road and you're driving your car? It's, you stop your car. It's not rocket science to figure this out. So I think keeping this in mind with the Parks and Master Plans being developed, this is going to work for everyone, is remembering that everyone includes everyone. I think that's a good way to kind of sum that part of it up. Definitely thank you for coming and spending so much time up there answering questions, but go ahead.
No, thank you. I had one more point, and Tracy's report with the funding was so enlightening, and that's another reason to have a multi-use trail. Nobody has the resources to build just a bike trail, just a jogging trail. So a multi-use trail makes financial sense if you're going to achieve what she outlined earlier. So yeah, getting along when we get on the trail together, we figure it out pretty quick. It works, and it works for a lot of people. So thank you. I appreciate the time. We'll be back. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, your service, and all of you for coming.
You guys have any other questions for Don while he's up here? No? Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Any
I
other?
have one item. I just would love to get your feedback on page 80 of the report. That is where we describe trails and recreation corridors. So if there's any feedback you have, we certainly want to honor all of the work that's been done to date, and welcome your feedback on that. So I have your binder. I have the binder you gave me a year and a half ago on recreation corridors. I think this section addresses most of the items that were included in that, but happy to make some edits to it.
Thank you.
I have a question. This might be a really dumb question, and I'm going to ask it live on television.
Tens of people.
Tens of thousands of people watching this. So many parts in Southport like Southport Parkway now we're doing separated bike trails. Do horses ride in those separated bike trails? I assume they can, but is that an area where, if you're getting from point A to point B, do horses use the roadways at all, or is it just too busy?
We
do. Kind of
It's over my shoulder. Yeah, we do if we have to, but obviously we prefer not to for a lot of points that you just made. You're right. Stop your car when you see a horse. Please don't honk your horn.
Yeah, no.
There's issues like that, but.
So having some of those wider bike lanes out there on Village Parkway, I would think that would be one of the main ones you can get. That is an area where that's a Trails for All in there, I assume, and it is. And by no means am saying it's as good as a horse trail. It's not, obviously. But at least are you not being impeded from moving around? As it gets more urbanized out there, are you able to move around using the bike lanes a little bit to piece together some of the dirt trails and roads you're using? And if not, can it be improved?
Right. And can we do that? Can we combine all of the opportunities to create the ability to move around and ride around? And so we'll be looking at all those.
Because it's a branch line trail out there right now, and then probably some private roads,
Davis Road and come
Davis
back
Road,
around.
and when they put that in there.
Some of us ride down Marshall and back out that way,
Okay.
so,
Well, thank you, that's been very educational.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what I was going to piggyback onto that too, you're good, go ahead and sit down, was that a lot of these things is, we're talking specifically about horses tonight a lot, but I think a lot of it goes toward if you're a kid riding a bike, you probably want to be separated from traffic. If you're a senior riding a bike, you want to be separated from traffic. If you're walking, you want to be separated from traffic. So a lot of this stuff is coming together that if we make the trails that are separated from traffic, we solve a lot of problems. So looking at, I just happen to have page 81, has that park connected trail map, which talks about Sycamore Trail, all these different things that are going to connect all the different communities together with those trails that are defined. What my question for you guys from the trail map on page 81 was that when you guys list a proposed trail, does that mean a proposed paved trail or just an access to a flat piece of earth that could be used?
So this came from the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Master Plan, and the proposed trails as identified, they're already existing unpaved trails, so the proposed trail indicator is as a paving of the trail, or at least a portion of it.
Sure,
so that
like we were talking about, you have 30 feet and you pave 8 it. Okay, perfect. And then knowing what I know of this is proposed trail might take years and years and years, but that was something that when we did the tour of the setback levy and things, we're talking about different opportunities for paving it, and does that increase the amount of usage or decrease the amount of usage, and that's all stuff that everybody's thinking about, so I'm happy about that. Does anybody else have other questions? Because I got 2 more, but actually, no, that got answered already. I'm done, but go ahead, Dave, you got something? Questions?
Thank you. Thanks. First of all, thank you for the report. It's very impressive and extensive, and I did look through it. I will admit I didn't read every word, but I did go through it before the meeting and was impressed. So one of the things for your upcoming presentation to council, I just kind of had some comments, questions. One of them being around the current maintenance of the existing parks. I know it's in here as part of the plan, but we do have quite a few parks that are already existing, and the funding or resources allocated to commit to those to maintain them up to a certain standard. As we expand to create more park space, how is that affecting the budget? Do we have enough resources allocated to maintain what we have? And will we have enough to maintain what we create?
Well, we currently could use a few more staff to maintain what we already have. And identifying levels of maintenance is also really important, because certainly play fields require a different level of maintenance than a more passive park facility. We are hoping to be able to add staff to our park maintenance division and continue to explore opportunities where we might be able to grow a volunteer program or sponsor a park type of program to help us with those maintenance needs. But certainly, as we grow our system, there will be demand for more staffing to support that, either in-house or through contracting. It's just, we have a lot of new acreage planned over the next 10-year window.
And one of the thoughts that I had, expanding kind of on that question, was if we could take some of the non-recreational elements, some parks that exist that maybe aren't used specifically for sports activities, or if we could minimize the maintenance within those. For example, there's a couple parks near Memorial that are the circle shape, and there are a lot of grass that covers those with a couple of park benches. But if they're not being used primarily for a sports activity, if we could maybe remove some of the grass area and turn it into more of a gazebo, shade structure, or more picnic benches, things like that don't require as much attention, that could be something that could be considered as well. Taking and really localizing the usage of the park to minimize the amount of resources that need to be allocated to it. It's just one of the thoughts I had going through it.
I remember having that conversation a couple of years ago, talking about how the trend in the 70s and 80s was to build a park and just to put grass everywhere. And that's changed so much, and we've seen that with, I think Westfield was a good example of that, where you had like a big grass rectangle, and now it's got carved out picnic areas, paving around for, so like you said, lower maintenance items. Play structures aren't always lower maintenance than grass, but definitely when we're in, the kind of cost of water isn't going away.
Exactly.
Turf grass is very expensive to maintain, but yeah, that's a great idea, especially when we're looking at, page 51, and it talks about how repairing aging neighborhood parks is the #1 amenity that people would want to fund. We base so much of this master plan off that survey results and what people really want. So I think if people are most willing to fund that, that's great. I did also notice that numbers 2, 3, 5, and 6 were trails. So we're doing, everything kind of matches up with what the survey results and what the, kind of people said they wanted. So it's always refreshing when the results match up with the survey. Matt, go ahead.
So just shifting gears a little bit, we've talked a lot about Southport because there's there's a lot of new construction that will be going on out there. New construction generates the funds that build new stuff. So we'll see new stuff being built in the areas where new stuff is being built. That's a given. The reason why we're having some issues with some neighborhoods is because there's not active home building happening. So I'm wondering, and those are areas, Westmoreland State Streets, there's no new home building happening there, so they're not generating funds for parks. Though it sounds like we do have a potential plan of working with the school district to be able to get potentially 2 new play areas there. So that's great, that's my neighborhood, I'm looking forward to that. But can you talk a little bit how the Parks Department is looking at servicing some of the older neighborhoods where stuff isn't building a little bit more, north of the freeway, Evergreen, Westfield, Meadowdale, I know they have a little tiny park there, Broderick, Bright, those neighborhoods where there isn't active new home construction, which is triggering those new funds. I know we have equity plans and strategies, but would love to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. We actually do have in the 10-year CIP new park development taking place as part of the Washington Historic District. There have been sites identified as part of the planning effort there that some of those will come online. We have identified kind of a master planning effort at Meadowdale to look at how we might reposition that park to better serve the community. It actually has a great parking lot. We can activate that park in different ways to make it, function a little bit differently. And certainly with Prop 68, much to my surprise, we have found that Bright Park and Elkhorn Park aren't eligible for the large grant program currently being offered. It doesn't meet the median income household requirements, and it doesn't meet the park acreage requirements, which is really surprising, but we are planning to try to put together a workshop to take to council to identify opportunities for grant applications for that program, and we will be sharing that with this commission as well. But the areas near West Acre Park and opportunities to look at expanding that, which would involve partnerships with the school district to do that, that actually is a great site. That area, even though we have an existing park, is still a park-poor part of the city. It meets the median income household requirements, and we could reposition that park to add value to that neighborhood that's north of the freeway. But other than those areas, we haven't identified new acquisition opportunities in this current plan. Certainly, if some become available, we would explore that.
Can you explain a little bit more on the proposition, the median income targets? I know we've heard this in the past, and I'm not understanding if West Sac as a whole is not meeting it, or if it's specific neighborhoods that have to meet it, that it's built around, and if it's the latter, are there areas within town that will be eligible? It's just a Bright Park issue.
Yes, there are areas that are eligible. So based on, this is this is part of my director's report, so. Based on the Community Fact Finder, which is a tool that State Parks uses, it identifies a radius around a potential park site that gives you information on the park acreages. So to be eligible for this particular grant, you need to demonstrate that within a certain radius, and the tool gives you that radius, that you have less than 3 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, or that you have a median income that is less than $51,026. And so there are neighborhoods that meet one or the other criteria. Nothing in Southport. And it doesn't even matter when you use the tool if the radius happens to extend to another jurisdiction, across a levee and a river and another levee. It might not be accessible at all for the resident, but if that tool tells you there's parkland within that radius, there's really no flexibility around that. So that means a lot of the opportunities in Southport aren't eligible for this grant program. In the north part of town, there are multiple areas that are eligible. Washington, that district is eligible. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of parkland with the exception of Riverwalk Park. It certainly hits the median household income requirements. And there are areas over near Bright Park, but you just have to get further away from the park site to be eligible, and we don't have property identified at this time. Yeah.
Tracy, just follow up what you just said about, what I'm curious about, like Westfield, because of the income threshold, I'm surprised that didn't come up, so I'm wondering about it.
Well, the Westfield Park, I think that site could be eligible if you wanted to propose improvements to the park. The big grant program is for new park development, expansion or renovation of an existing park. And so we just need to be strategic about where we want to put our resources into grant applications to get the biggest bang for the buck. So is that the right location versus West Acre Park, potentially expanding that, or Westmore Oaks, the current K-8 Westmore Oaks could be eligible if we decide to move forward with the school district on a property there. Based on the time frame in this current round of Prop 68 funding, that project would likely fall outside the window. It's a very tight performance period, so you need to pick a site that you can improve in a pretty short time frame. The current charter school site could be an eligible site. There could be some other properties, you just kind of move the cursor around. There are opportunities. They aren't what we thought they would be necessarily. We were really thinking that Bright Park would be the first application under this program. So we need to look at what those other opportunities are, and we can submit more than one application. What's nice about the Prop 68 program, and we did assume originally in our 10-year CIP that we would receive an $8.5 million grant for Bright Park. We took that out because we know the park's not eligible for that, but we did add in a grant, and I applied for another grant program that could provide some funding for Bright Park. Not $8.5 million, we've asked for $5 million, but we factored that in because we might have a chance at getting that. So, but yeah, so we just need to kind of evaluate which sites seem to put the city in the most competitive position for the improvements we're targeting.
And then can I say one last thing, and I will not speak again. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming and sitting through the whole meeting. A lot of respect for doing that. I mean, I'm sure you're interested in all this too, but a lot of times folks come to public meetings, say what they have to say, and then leave and don't listen to the rest of the discussion. And I think having context of what was presented tonight is really great, so it's really appreciated, and normally there's a lot of empty seats out there, so thank you for that. The last thing on the parks thing, on the Sycamore Trail, that is fully within the purview of this plan, correct?
It's included in this plan. It's also included in the Bike Ped Trails Master Plan.
So I think the Sycamore Trail's the most important piece of infrastructure potentially coming, even more important than Central Park, as much as I love Central Park. But the Sycamore Trail is going to be the thing that finally, after 40 years of living here, that a kid riding his bike is going to be able to ride from Southport to Broderick. The terminus will be Bright, but it will turn into Broderick at some point, in a safe manner. I think it's huge. I think the visual of knitting together these neighborhoods, which have been, as we all know, laterally divided by a railroad track, by a highway, West Capitol, by a freeway, by a deep water channel. There's no way to go from one end of town to the other in a safe manner if you're an 8-year-old kid trying to get to Bright Park for soccer. And I think it's extremely important. I think a lot of the infrastructure on this is really good. But I also know that there's some concern out there with folks in the community about the alignment of the trail. And I know you know this, but I want to reiterate and I want to ask that we as a city do everything we can to communicate with the neighbors about the Sycamore Trail who are going to back up to the trail. I think it's a positive, but I know that there are some folks that are worried about that. And then at the same time, I think we as a city can kill two birds with one stone and talk with some of those same neighbors about potential plans that are happening at, I call it Westmore Oaks Classic, because I'm an alumni. And I also call it River City, because that's the era I am. But I think that those two parks, I think there's some concern in the neighborhood, and the concern is that they don't know what's happening. And they're getting rumors from third graders who are coming home saying that River City's going to be bulldozed. And I know that that is not what's happening, but it's, as part of this, I just want to ask that you think about bending over backwards to reach out and communicate on those three things with that neighborhood early and often. And I think you'll be well received there. So, thank you.
Danny, you good? All right. I will mention that a lot of times you'll hear stuff about, like, from the public will say, well, I never heard about this master plan. So I'm glad that this is the 6th time we've gone through this. And we have, like I said, 3 more sessions already planned. Like Commissioner Hargrove said, it's like you just have to just keep telling people that we're doing this, because then it's the more times you get that information out there, the more opportunity there is for people to come. Because like today, we have trail riders that are here that weren't here at the previous 5 readings of it, or, but it's not always a concern until it is a concern. So you always have the issues where you're building something, a park, a trail in someone's backyard, and they don't want it to be in their backyard. So it's having that conversation with them and having the opportunities to explain how, and the research behind it, which is all in this document that talks about how an activated trail is statistically safer than a dead park, or not a trail that's not being used. So continuing to have those discussions, continuing to invite the public to those discussions, continuing to invite the neighbors, that's great. Keep it going. 185 pages of document I didn't read every word either, but I trust that we're in great hands, so keep up the good work. Anything else on item 5? Did I get that right? Yeah. Item 5? Nope. All right. On to General Administration Function Part 2, number 6A, Director's Report. I think we got some of that, but...
We did. I'll keep it short. I did want to provide an update on Memorial Park, the ADA upgrades. We received the 100% plans from the consultant, and we're revising them right now. We should have the updated plans by April 11th. We hope to have the bid package ready to go the end of April. Having the bid date is May 29th. We anticipate taking a contract award to City Council on June 19th. Hopefully move forward with a notice to proceed to construct the improvements on June 24th. And just a few weeks ago, we did provide Little League with a set of plans showing the available location of the sponsor tiles that will be on the snack bar and restroom building exterior walls. So that project is moving very quickly right now. As I mentioned, I did submit a concept proposal for the Cultural, Community, and Natural Resource Grant Program. That is a Prop 68 funded program. It does not have as much money as the other Prop 68 grant programs, 30-some-odd million statewide, but I threw Bright Park's hat in the ring, and we shall know next week if we've been invited to submit a formal application for that grant program. I wanted to let you know the business manager position in the Parks and Recreation Department. We had a solicitation for that. We're conducting interviews this week and probably next week, so hopefully by the next commission meeting, we'll have a new business manager that will take the reins with a lot of the grant programming. We also recently had a CPRS conference. I don't know if any of the commission members had a chance to attend the expo. We had sent out the expo passes. It was a really great conference. A lot of our staff was involved in conference, both pre-conference tours, facilitating sessions, volunteering to work at the event, and we got a lot of great ideas that we look forward to incorporating into our programming. And then also upcoming events, I'm going to pass out a flyer for you for Earth Day that's coming up in Bright Park on Saturday, April 20th. It will be held in conjunction with an egg hunt that our rec center staff will be facilitating, so it's a really great event from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Bright Park. We have an Arbor Day event taking place on Saturday, April 27th at 9 a.m. at Elkhorn Park. This is something we do every year. The past few years, we've had a Girl Scout troop come out to help us plant trees. That's what we're planning to do this year, and the commission is invited to attend that event. And if a commissioner would like to volunteer to read a proclamation for Arbor Day, we would welcome that as well. And then I did want to let you know that on April 27th, Saturday, also, there is a cleanup effort at Joey Lopes Park and Sycamore Trail. It is not a Parks and Rec or a city-initiated event. Project Church has hosted it, but it's been on social media. A lot of people have heard about it, so I just wanted to share that with you. We are providing some support staff there to offer guidance for the cleaning effort. And then, as Christine mentioned earlier in her presentation, May 3rd is the Senior Resource Fair. That concludes my director's update.
All right. Item 6B is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
No motion.
Commissioner Jan's motion to adjourn the meeting. Commissioner Ahmad seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.